Hey everybody, welcome to this week's episode of Midwest Mythos. And guys, I got another awesome one lined up for you. Like I said, we going into year two hot and heavy, and we got some awesome guests lined up. And this evening, got a guest that we've been talking back and forth for about the last 6-7 months now, and we finally found a date to make it work. And this evening, y'all are gonna have a really good time. But before we get into that, guys, thank you so much for showing the love. You guys have been awesome on all platforms. The show's grown so much in the last month. I'm talking hundreds of new subscribers and stuff like that. And I just appreciate every little bit of love that you guys are giving. And I just want to send it right back to you. I love each and every one of you guys. Even if this is the first episode you're listening to, I love you. And yeah, so without further ado, tonight's guest, who I have heard many great things from my brother Shane Jones at Inquiries of Our Reality, and Drewski from Crypto Warfare Operations. We got Rod Nichols from Bexar County Bigfoot. How's it going, brother?
Doing great, man. How are you doing?
Oh, man, I'm doing great.
Yeah.
We had some technical difficulties getting into this, but like we were talking about before we hit record, that always means it's about to be a great episode. So before we get into talking about what we're going to be talking about this evening, why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself?
Yeah. So like a lot of other researchers, um, it started as kind of a young age, going into elementary school, right? The book fair coming through, just getting into buying Bigfoot books and Loch Ness Monster and, just really diving into that stuff and just really expanding your mind in the fact that there is something bigger um, that is out there, so to speak, and not even just figuratively, but literally bigger. There's other creatures out there that we don't know about in our own backyard, in our own country, our own continent. And so for me, it really was intriguing from an early age. And so I think like a lot of other researchers, Patterson Gimlin film was definitely the one that really got our attention, and then going into growing up in the 80s, you have Leonard Nimoy's In Search Of, which I thought was amazing. You've got Unsolved Mysteries, which kind of had certain stories about alleged Sasquatch sightings and things like that. So I was really, I want to say that I tell people this a lot. I really believed in the subject. I think from the first time that I had heard of a 7-8 foot or in excess to 10 foot biped covered in hair that's out there in the woods. I believe that instantly. And some people are like, well, how can you say that? And I tell them, like, uh, look at our continent, look at our country. I mean, you can't tell me that we know every inch, every bit of our state or our country. None of that. We don't know. So yeah, I mean, I think, and not only that, we're constantly discovering new species in other countries. So why couldn't it happen here? And or why could we have something that's out there that we haven't caught up with, or we haven't it hasn't been documented in the way that we were able to find as far as like let's take the mountain gorilla, for instance.
Mm-hmm.
That was a cryptid for a long time until they actually discovered, hey, these gorillas can live in higher altitudes, type of thing. The panda was a cryptid. I think there were stories about it for a long time until it was discovered. So I think that there is definitely room for that in the United States now, with Bigfoot and cryptids like that. There's always some mysticism and some supernatural stuff, I think, that goes along with it. But nevertheless, I think that it is something that still is undiscovered to a certain extent. We may never really fully grasp it. We may fully understand it, but that's okay. I think that's what keeps me going, as far as being a researcher and, being boots on the ground researcher at that. So, it evolved from, childhood all the way to adulthood, getting into that, and for me, it started, I think, getting really serious about it. It started with just, I think, being on disability for a little while, and I had I had nothing else to do but to just kind of watch YouTube and just meander around my home and just kind of sit and do nothing. So one night I was on YouTube, and of course I'm going to look up Bigfoot, and I looked up Bigfoot, and I found a gentleman that was out of Utah, and he presented trace evidence in the form of wood structures. And he found prints, and he had his stories of his encounters with these creatures as well. But what the most intriguing thing about what he presented were the wood structures. And I thought to myself, I'd never heard of anything like this. In my mind, being ignorant to the subject, thinking I knew, but I didn't really know. There was, maybe one or a few out in Northern California, up there on the West Coast, and that was it. The species or the creature couldn't possibly be, in my area or in Texas for that matter. But, I entertained the idea of, this guy showing me these wood structures and his ideas and what he thought. So I binge watched every video on his channel, every video. And one night I did it. And the trace evidence he presented were wood structures. And they were just in these areas where it's like, man, what is going on? Like, is this people build this stuff? And, looking at the construction, looking at how these things were put together, or, they looked like just very crudely put together, really odd stuff. And I sat there and I thought, this is really strange. And I just watched all the videos. And then there was one video at the end where he broke it down as to how he finds this trace evidence. And he mapped it out. He said, hey, look, this is what I look for. This is how I find this stuff. I'm going to equip you so you can go out and find, what I'm finding. And then you tell me if you think it's a hoax, you think I'm lying, you think I'm putting you on. You tell me, here are the tools, go out. So the next day I went out, and on the day that I went to go find a wood structure, I found a wood structure. And it blew my mind because I thought that this was going to be like, I thought it was people doing this stuff. I really did. And some people still do believe that. Even some researchers discredit, I think, this very viable piece of trace evidence. They discredit it. And I still think back to that day when I got into this area, and it's a wilderness park where people go and walk, and they have natural trails, and there's some paved trails and things like that. But this area that I went into, people didn't go into necessarily. It was just kind of out of the way a little bit. Mm-hmm. And it ran up against a very prominent creek, green belt called the Salado Creek in San Antonio. And the Salado Creek goes in and out of the city. In fact, it goes through the city into other towns. It's a very long creek. So knowing that this could be possibly a highway, and then understanding the history of the Salado Creek, the Native Americans used it as their highway to go in and out of San Antonio. So again, there we go. We had white-tailed deer that were not hunted. These areas, there's no hunting, there's no camping. So these white-tailed deer are healthy. So we've got a food source. And then about a mile away, 2 miles away from that specific area, there is a huge pond or a small lake, whatever you want to call it. So there's your water source. Mm-hmm. So when these things got put together in my mind, I thought, oh, of course, maybe we have a recipe for some activity, and maybe there's some evidence. So when I came up on this wood structure, I was videoing it. My son was with me, and I thought, and you could hear in the video, it's on my YouTube channel. It's the very first video, I believe. where you can hear me going, no way. I'm really like, I can't believe I found this. I'm like, no way. Are you serious? And I'm thinking people are going to come out of the woodwork or come out of the trees and be like, I got you. It never happened.
Hmm.
But but studying this thing, you've got these pieces that were bigger in diameter. You've got these pieces that were ripped out up maybe of the ground or maybe out of the tree. They were huge. Some of them I think still had the root system still attached to them. This is probably about 6 foot tall A-frame structure. And these trees that I found that were a part of this wood structure did not grow in that area. So again, something picked these big pieces up, drug them, made this A-frame for whatever reason, and it was very fascinating to me. So that's what started it. And after that, I was out in the woods every day that I had anytime I had free time. I was out there just learning, documenting, looking at the lay of the land, looking at the maps and how all of this is connected. And come to find out, the Salado Creek in my area connects several different wilderness parks that have no camping, no hunting. Whitetail deer are abundant. And from sun up, the park opens, and then sundown it closes. So when you've got no people in there, there's no telling what kind of activity is going on in there, right? So
Yeah.
but here's what I'll tell you. I don't discredit that. Homeless people can go into these areas and hang out or whatever. I don't discredit human activity, and in fact, it can happen. I'm not telling you that every piece of trace evidence or every wood structure that I find is it's cryptid related.
Yeah.
The answer to that question is I do not know.
And
However, if you look at the construction, if you look at the pieces involved, the diameter, the type of pieces of wood, they 9 times out of 10 they did not grow there. Some of them can be in excess of 14, 15 feet tall and about 8 or 9 inches in diameter. We're talking about a strong individual picking up these pieces, dragging them yards or feet to make a TP, an A-frame for what,
yeah,
right?
exactly. Oh, that's one of the things that I always think about with structures because uh, in up in Michigan, you know, I've seen things that like looking back on very well could have been structures and stuff like that, and in these areas, like a lot of us, I come from the last generation of kids that played outside. So
Yeah,
uh, when me and my friends would go outside and build forts and teepees and all that stuff out in the woods,
yeah,
well, first off, we always stayed close to home.
mm,
No more than 100 or 200 yards out into the woods and stuff like
right,
that.
right,
So because we're close, and we'd always grab, and this was even, we were teenagers doing this stuff too, like middle high
sure,
school and stuff too, just for fun, or
sure,
shelter while paintball wars and stuff like that.
yeah, yeah,
But we would never grab the giant 8-9 inch diameter, sometimes the foot diameter logs or anything to make this stuff. We would get
right,
the quick, fast, easy stuff because it's going to be real temporary. So why go into all this extra steps and labor to get the big stuff that's going to last when we're just going to use the small stuff? And then I don't know if you're going to get into it or not. If But with structures, recently I've come across some structures when I was down south, uh, to where trees were weaved in and
mm-hmm,
throughout, like, and there was a couple other things that
mm-hmm,
uh, I can't explain it. I'll just have to send you a picture of it.
sure,
Honestly, of what I don't even know how to describe it on the show, so I'm not even going to attempt. But it's
yeah,
really, really weird. I'll send you the picture afterwards.
yeah,
But some of these structures, like, I'm with you. I'm not ruling out that it could be a person making it, but when you look at these locations like where you were, it's out the way. Yeah,
Mhm.
people are out there, but they're not out at that spot
Right,
usually. You kind of just have to admit that, man, that's kind of weird. And if you
right,
if you look at any listeners right now, if you go and you either look at Rod's stuff or you just go on YouTube or Google and type in Bigfoot structures, you'll look at them and they're quite different than what the human default would be to
right.
creating these structures as well. Like there's, of course, there is similarities, but that's with all structures. But like
Absolutely.
you can notice these different things that are just off that we would not think to do or we would
Hmm.
not be able to do without like a step ladder or something like that because some of these structures are weaved in and bobbed like 8 9 feet 10 feet up in the air.
Right,
I'm
right,
not going to go through all that trouble trying to do
right.
that
For
stuff
what?
even if I was
Right,
a hoaxster and want to do it.
right.
I'm not going to do all that.
Yeah, yep. And so with that being said, if you look at a human built wood structure, it's going to have uniformity to it.
Hmm.
Meaning, meaning the pieces are going to be pretty much the same length because there is a purpose for that type of wood structure. Maybe it was to keep yourself out of the elements. Maybe it was to hide or whatever the case is. Anything human built is going to have uniformity to it. It's going to have consistency to it, right? So I go and I look at the size of these pieces. 9 times out of 10, these pieces do not have uniformity, right? Because I've gotten the question of, well, maybe it's people that are doing bushcraft or they're teaching a class and, they're showing, how to build this stuff. I've seen bushcraft shelters. It's nothing like these things.
Hmm.
Nothing. Nothing. There is definitely um, a plan in place with these things being built because, again, of the uniformity, because of the consistency, the size of the pieces. 9 times out of 10, they're going to use some type of handsaw. So you're going to see cut marks. You're going to see a lot of stuff. You're going to see uh, uh, an effort to keep out rain, to keep out wind, to keep out sunlight. With these things, there's none of that. It doesn't keep out rain. It doesn't keep out wind. It doesn't keep out. It doesn't keep out anything. Honestly. And so they're very crudely built. It looks like just a put together type of thing. And now I will say this: there is some within all of that chaos. There is some ingenuity involved in these things
Hmm.
because there are supports that have to keep some of these bigger pieces up. So there's some thought, but it's not like a human, I think, train of thought put into this stuff. It really isn't. Sometimes you'll see these. I think these are palmetto plants. I forgot what. Maybe I'm wrong, but they're like a desert plant that have these really long, slender leaves, really long.
Hmm.
And I've seen these actually pulled out of the plant and actually woven around certain sticks to kind of hold the piece in place, type of thing. Um, Very interesting type of stuff. And so when you look at all of this, you have to wonder if it's a human, what's the purpose? Because these things do not keep out any of the elements. If it's kids, I don't know many kids are going to be able to pick up 10 foot, 10-inch diameter pieces with the root system still attached to them to build them into a teepee or a wigwam or an A-frame or a lean structure.
Hmm.
Um, and for what purpose? What is new? Because I get a lot of pushback on all of this stuff because it's always written off as human, and I get it's the same narrative every time. I used to do that when I was a kid. Great. This isn't like when you were a kid, or hey, Rod, it's homeless people. I'm like, it's not homeless people. The homeless people that we have here, at least in my area, they have tents. You know, they have tents. They're out there in tents. They're not building this stuff. And not only that, again, I have to bring you back to the fact that these things do not keep out elements. They do
Yes.
not keep out the elements. So here's what I'm still trying to figure out. I may never be able to figure it out, or may never have that answer. What are they for? And what creature is building it? I don't know. And if you listen to if you watch any of my videos, I will never say this is a Bigfoot structure. Bigfoot built this, because I don't know. I
Hmm.
don't know. But I can tell you this: the phenomenon is across the nation. You just said you'd found some stuff, probably, right? You've seen some things in some of your areas, right, that are kind
Yes.
of anomalous. I
Yep.
could look at somebody in Washington State that's found stuff in Oklahoma, in Maine, you know. So, this is definitely something that I believe is attributed to cryptid activity. And I believe this is a viable piece of trace evidence that people totally discard. Nobody gives it a second look.
Right.
Even some of the most tenured researchers don't look at it as well, whatever. Maybe we should be paying attention to this stuff, you know?
I I think so. I From experience, I think it's very important to look into these, whether it's markers or maybe it's just somewhere to take a nap, to like
Could yeah,
hide a little bit, just based
yep.
on the like some of the ones I've seen. And I've had photos sent to me. I used to have an old boss, not even into this stuff at all, but he knew I was
Mm-hmm.
into it.
Mm-hmm.
And he was camping up in Ludington, Michigan, near the Manistee National Forest,
Mm-hmm.
and they just rented a cabin, like Airbnb cabin, out in the woods, and there's others around it. So there's people, there's civilization and stuff. But he went on a hike a couple miles out, and I just get this text. And he's like, "Yo, Riley, what's this?" And it's these
Mm-hmm.
sticks all over making X's, and then they're
Yeah.
kind of just all over the place. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, "Oh, that could be, some kind of tree structure or some like
Mm-hmm.
hideaway." I'm not gonna say it's a Sasquatch or anything like that. I was like, I
Sure,
know
sure.
there's tendencies to that, but there's also people around. But just the way this one looked,
Mm-hmm.
this is where I get the 10 foot up in the air kind of deal. Like there's trees
Right.
strung out 10 foot in the air. It just don't. I don't know a single person that would put that much effort into something like this.
Right, right,
And if there's hoaxers out there, they're not gonna do it. And some random part of Michigan,
right.
someplace. No, if you're gonna be a serious hoaxer, you're gonna go to big places like the Smoky Mountain National Park, real close to
Mm-hmm.
a trail. You're gonna go
Mm-hmm.
to like Land Between the Lakes. You're gonna go to Bluff Creek. You're gonna go.
Mm-hmm.
You're gonna go to all these places where you know there is a lot of researchers and stuff
Mm-hmm.
doing this kind of stuff. You're not gonna waste your time on some little podunk town,
Yeah.
uh, waiting to
Right.
get. It's I
Right.
I can't see it.
Right. I think a lot of that, if you're looking at hoaxing, the primary goal here is to be seen. It's because ultimately what it leads to is, look at what I'm doing. Look at me. Look at me.
Hmm.
It's a pride thing. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? So, if something that's tucked away in the woods, I have a hard time believing that it's a person. And again, I have to use critical thinking. I just don't roll up on these things and go, aha, it's trace evidence, and whatever. It's attributed, it's connected to cryptid activity. I don't know until I start looking and examining the pieces, examining the pieces of wood involved. What does it look like? Are they cut? Are they
Hmm.
sawed off? Is the root system still attached? What kind of tree is this? Is it a mesquite? Is it a cedar? Is it an oak? What is it? How tall in length? What's the diameter? All these things. I have to look at all these things. And sometimes I will find, some imprints out, some outline of footprints around these things. Now, the hard part about us with footprints is that we've got hard pan ground in San Antonio.
Hmm.
We've got a layer of bedrock underneath the soil that really, it's not really as soft. So I'll put it to you this way: if we build a fence around somebody's backyard, we're going to need an auger bit, and we're going to need to because a post hole digger and a breaker bar, you'll be there for a long time
Oh
because
yeah.
you got to break through all that rock. So to give you an idea how hard this ground is, that's what we deal with. So, getting prints, I'll tell you this, getting prints anyway, and in any area is hard. It's not that easy. It's not like what people think it is because, you get, I'll put out videos and people are, well, was there prints? And if there's no prints, well, then it's not a viable piece of trace evidence. Well, wait a minute now. Let's look at the geography. Let's look at where I'm at. What kind of ground are we dealing with here? Here we have hard pan, and it's tough. I have found footprints. I have done some castings. They're not the prettiest things in the world, but I do believe it's because of the type of ground that we deal with here in San Antonio. The other thing I like to tell people is this: San Antonio literally sits on pretty much an underground cavern, series of underground caverns. Okay.
Yeah.
So again, there's another rabbit hole we can go down
Oh yeah.
with that as well. But going back to the tree structures, these are all connected, and they're all in wilderness parks that are connected by one creek, the Salado Creek in San Antonio, right? At its most northern part, it goes up into an area that's called the Edwards Underground Aquifer Recharge Zone. So the Edwards Underground Aquifer, is where we get our water. It's filtered through that rock. We grab our water from that underground aquifer. Now, that goes along with the underground caverns that we have in San Antonio. We've got a ton of them. In fact, there's a cave association in San Antonio, which I'd like to reach out to at some point. But so at its most northern part, it's up there in that recharge zone. And there's definitely some underground cavern stuff going on there. But above that, further back, further north, it goes into a military base. And that military base it opens up into a beautiful, like thick, lush area where there is, if you want to get lost, you will get lost in that area and nobody will find you. So again, we've got a creek that presents a passage in and out, water source, white-tailed deer, all the usual suspects, all the critters. I can go in and out of that area if I wanted to. I can go in and out. I can go all the way through San Antonio using that same creek, and I can travel easily on that creek all the way through San Antonio. I have a nice food source. I have some water. There's other water sources connected to that creek as well. So the wilderness parks that are connected to that Salado Creek are almost like tributaries in a way.
Yeah.
And that's where I found a lot of the wood structures, the trace evidence that I found. They're all in those parks. And I found it very interesting that there's a consistency in these wood structures and where they're found, and they're in these parks all along this creek. So if you look at if you listen or read any other encounters with hunters or people camping, whatever it may be, not going to say sometimes, a lot of times you'll find that they're camping along a river, or they saw the creature along a creek. Mm-hmm. There's a creek or something connected, because that presents an easy in and out.
Yes. Well, up here in Michigan, just north of me, is the Paw Paw Lake watershed, the Paw Paw River, and the St. Joseph River. And mm-hmm. It covers all Southwest Michigan, like 3 counties. There's 3 counties. And in this area is where you get like the nationally famous Dewey Lake monster sighting in the 60s. Mm-hmm. There's all kinds of sightings. My wife's seen a dog man
really
in the area. Yeah, while driving.
Yeah. And in Michigan?
Yep. And
I'm not surprised.
Yeah, it's it's
Michigan's
becoming
a hotbed for dog man stuff.
it's becoming more and more
Yeah.
active. Like a lot of people that don't believe this stuff are having messaging me right now. Hey Riley, we got this weird thing going on right now. Oh, okay.
Mm,
Explain it. And I'm like, oh, well, you might not like the sound of this. And they're like, oh, that stuff's not real. And I'm like, all right, well, just keep doing what you're doing then. Just don't go out in the woods at night and stuff like that. And they're like, okay.
sure. Yeah.
But yeah, it's like you could follow these trails or these river ways. A lot of the time, it just turns into a creek. Sometimes it turns into a big river. It all leads to Lake Michigan,
Right.
or it goes down south
Right.
into the Mississippi in some places. Like it stops being the Paw Paw River, the St. Joseph River, and it'll
Hmm.
go into other rivers, but it will go into the Mississippi in some places. You can follow these rivers the whole time, and
Sure.
that's where everybody's seeing these. I've
Mm.
heard stories of lower hunters seeing them all the time. My buddy's seen one up north, north of Southwest Michigan, the
Hmm.
north end of it. He's seen one while hunting. All of them along the water. All
Hmm.
these structures and stuff that I remember kind of seeing as a kid
Yeah.
too, all along creeks, everything. So it makes sense.
Hmm.
And I love how you go and just we can move on after this, but you
Sure.
brought up the not having footprints and stuff
Right.
because there's a layer of bedrock and stuff. Our issue here is one, it's so wet. Yes, it's
Hmm.
easy to make prints, but there's
Hmm.
so much sand and stuff from the lakes and stuff. So
Hmm.
everything gets shifted real easy. Like I can go step
Hmm.
outside, leave a trail of footprints, but the second a gust of wind comes in or something, it's
Right.
completely gone.
Right.
And then
Right.
or it's super clay, and all you're gonna leave in clay is just like wet clay. All you're is just a slide
Right.
mark.
Right. Right. I think, and you bring up a good point because you're in a totally different region than I am.
Hmm.
And even you're saying, to have a viable footprint to cast, that's not the easiest thing in the world. I think people that are uneducated and have not done the research on the subject, and researchers that have been doing it a while, um, they'll come to understand that finding footprints, it's not like it's just, oh, hey, I can just go out and find them and yeah, no big deal. Like it just doesn't happen as often as you think it does.
Hmm.
It's right up there with having a Class A sighting. Not everybody has had a Class A sighting. I think from the 18, if you look at the BFRO, if you look from the 1800s to modern day right now, there's about 23,000 sightings
Yeah.
altogether, right? And that's just what we know of, right?
Hmm.
23,000 is not that much in comparison to the United States as a whole.
Right, and even throwing in the factor of a lot of people aren't reporting to the BFRO and stuff, it's
Right,
still not that many compared to all the people. Actually,
right.
just last week, I think it's last week, no, 2 weeks ago now. There's a big one going up in Michigan right now. There's a Class A sighting in Monroe County that is the southeast, one of the most southeast counties in Michigan. You're basically in Ohio. It's
Hmm.
like 30, 45. I know the exact place this dude was because I used to fish out of that wildlife area. And dude was hunting, him and his son. They had a Class A, like face to face encounter. It was so big that Moneymaker got involved in it.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
that was the first Class A, like documented BFRO Class A sighting in Michigan in
Hmm.
years. And
Hmm.
so it's just like,
Yeah.
you're entirely right. Like, it's people, I mean, people on the outside hear us talk about these encounters and all this stuff all the time. But
Right.
the reality is we're all talking, unless like we're talking about, oh, my neighbor, this person, the big ones, we're all talking about like the same five encounters. We're talking about Ape Canyon. We're talking about uh, the Patterson Gimlin footage,
Sure.
Boggy
The,
Creek,
the Freeman footage.
yep, Sierra Sounds, the
Hmm.
Ohio Howl,
Yep.
and all the sightings in that area. We're just
Hmm.
talking about these ones. Like, it sounds like a lot because everybody's telling it slightly different, but the reality
Sure.
is we're just talking about a handful of them. If so,
Yeah. It's far and few is what it really is. It's not like I could just go out in the woods and just have that experience. That's a very rare thing to have. So, I tell people that what I present in the form of these wood structures, I believe it is, like I said, I believe it's viable trace evidence, number one. Number two, it's pointing towards something. I may not know exactly what, but I'm still studying it and I'm still trying to figure it out. I have theories on what these things could be, and I could be totally wrong. And that's the thing with me. I really shy away from just being absolute about this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I never sit there and go, no, you're wrong, I'm right, and this is what it's for. I don't know. But what I do know is this: they're littered all around the U.S. People are finding them, and people are not only finding them, but they're having their Class A sightings along with the wood structure.
Yes.
Right? Like I told this to, I forgot what show it was that I was on, and I had told the host, I said, you'll hear these, and if you listen carefully to some of these Bigfoot podcasts, you hear these people say, I found this weird looking, wigwam thing or this weird looking teepee thing on my property. They live in a rural area, and sometimes you'll hear, and most time you'll hear, it's up against a creek or it's by a river. There you go, right? And I saw this weird looking hut thing, and then whoa, here comes the creature. There it is, around this area where that little hut or teepee is. Why is that, right? And I could only say that these things have something to do with it, the construction of these things. Maybe they're building for whatever reason, I don't know, but they're connected. That's my whole point.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we should start looking at this stuff. I've heard some of the most well tenured and some of the most well known researchers totally discredit. Nah, they don't do that. Are you kidding me? I mean, to me, it's just kind of just with blinders. We're looking at this and this alone. Anything else? Nah.
Yeah.
You have my motto is this, and I've told everybody this: if you're open to some of it, you have to be open to all of it.
Yes. 110%.
It cannot just fit your narrative, and that's it. It can't.
Yeah, and like as somebody who has been in this, I've probably been in the like Bigfoot game, just the interest for the last 20 years since I was like
Mm.
5 years old. So like we were talking, like I was also that kid at the book fair, like
Yeah,
yeah, woo, Bigfoot, Loch Ness monster, all this stuff, and Monster
yeah,
Quest came out when I was a kid. So
yeah. That's cool.
I'd be watching on that. So growing up, I was like, oh, these things are flesh and blood. These things are ape, like straight
Right.
ape and stuff like that. There's no weird stuff that goes on with them. And then when I've had my encounters, uh, I was blasted with infrasound. I had fear, anxiety, all this kind of stuff, and I was like, "This ain't supposed to be happening. This ain't Bigfoot. Like people talk about it, but it's not supposed to be like this." And now my mind's open to it. Like you just said, if you believe part of it, you need to be open. If
You
you're
have
open
to.
for it, you have to.
You have
'Cause
to.
I can't explain everything that
Right.
happened to me, and
Right.
I don't think I'll ever be able to.
Right.
But now going in the researching where I'm at now and stuff like that, I'm able to like, all right, I'll listen to what you say. Or I might not take it as hard truth, or it might take me a
Sure.
minute to wrap my head around it, but
Sure.
I'm pretty much open to anything now.
Sure. And that's okay. That's totally okay.
Yeah,
Because some of these things, some of these theories are they seem a little far fetched, but again, we're talking about a creature we really know nothing about.
exactly.
We don't know its origin. There's no concrete evidence that really takes us to an origin, takes us to a why and a how, all those things. It just doesn't exist. It's not like I have one of these things in my garage to go and ask questions to,
Yeah.
right? I don't have that, and neither does anybody else. And here's the other thing. again, some of the most well-known researchers don't even have those answers, and some of them don't even they've never had any they've never had a sighting, they've never had an encounter, and that's not to take a shot at anybody. My point is this: when we approach this stuff, we need to approach it with humility, and we need to approach it with an open mind, and we need to hear everybody out. No matter how outrageous the story sounds, we need to hear them and collect this data and try to find some consistency in it, and then kind of go from there,
Right.
and that's the way I've kept it. I want to hear if it sounds outrageous. Yeah, I want to hear it because, first of all, it takes guts to sit down and talk to somebody and tell them this crazy story. I believe you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And not to say that there's people out there that will hoax. We got it. We understand that. But I mean, I've heard some crazy stuff, and people are reluctant. They're scared. They're like, hey, like, I don't want to be called crazy, but this is what I saw. This is what I encountered. Man, I believe you. And we're talking about people that are professional. you know and not that you have to be professional to have a believable encounter, but if we're talking about people that are police officers, lawyers, doctors, they have something to lose. I think
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
it went out publicly, right? Their credibility for one. So you know I really believe that. And going back to your point, I think you did you bring up the fact that I think you said something, the fact that you think that there's more than just an ape, an undiscovered ape,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So in the beginning, when I started this whole journey, um, I started out as an aper. I really did. I was an aper. Undiscovered primate. It's out there. We just haven't caught up with it. And the more and more I got into it, I thought, wait a minute, there's some things here that doesn't sound like an ape.
Yeah.
If you listen to people's encounters, their Class A encounters, and they said, "Wow, the face looked more human." Okay, that doesn't sound like an ape, right?
Right.
This thing cloaked right in front of me. Whoa, okay, that doesn't sound like a natural creature. Or I saw this creature and described it, and then afterwards, this orb followed it.
Yep.
Where did that come from, right? And we're
Exactly.
finding out that these are happening. They're happening a lot, right?
Right.
So I can't just sit there and go, nah, that's not what they do. I don't know, and nobody else knows. But here's the thing: we need to hear it out, because we're going to find consistency in these stories, and maybe we can put the pieces of the puzzle together, right? I've told people this: the reliability of these things existing. You can rely on these things existing, and I'll tell you why. Because of the behavior that is displayed. It is consistent. No matter what state you're in, the behavior is consistent, right?
Right.
For instance, the rocking back and forth,
Yep.
right?
The
The
peaking.
the peaking, the opening of the mouth, right?
Yes.
Uh, uh, um, um, the flanking, right? This thing
Yeah.
flanked me on the trail. All of these behaviors are consistent,
The smells.
right? No matter what state you're in, that makes Sasquatch reliable as far as it is its existence is concerned,
Right.
right? And so for me, when you listen to this stuff, you pay attention to the behavior. It's consistent. You look at the description of the creature, right? And some of them do vary. I do believe there are different types. I think there's
Yes.
different facial structures. Some will say hooded nose. Some will say more of a elongated muzzle. Some will say it looked like a chimpanzee. Some will say it looked like a baboon.
Hmm.
Some will say it looked like a gorilla, or some will say it looked like a. In some cases, I've heard people say it looked like a Native American. You
Yes.
know, so there's differences in that, but the behavior remains the same. And that is what something you can rely on in terms of these things existing. And that's what I tell everybody, because listen to all of these encounters, and I guarantee you, if it's a Class A, they're going to say, well, it was rocking back and forth, or it was tree peaking, or it flanked me, or, the behavior is consistent. That makes it reliable in the way of it existing.
Right. It's that that holds so much weight right there because number one, people don't talk like that. Like
Yeah.
how you just explain it. That's honestly the perfect way to explain it to somebody that's like not
Right.
into it. I've heard countless others try it, and that's honestly probably the best one I've heard to date. But yeah, no, it's true. Like even looking back at my encounters and stuff, like my encounter and stuff, it followed a structure. Like
Okay.
I can't speak too much on it now because
Right.
uh, reasons, but mine was a peaker,
Okay.
and we were flanked
Okay.
and stuff like that. And you can, like you said, if you can follow all these things, every encounter is going to have at least two of them that happen in it.
Right. There's consistency in the behavior that was displayed to you.
Right.
And then I can take your encounter and put it up against somebody else that had the same thing happen. Why? Why is that? If these things don't exist, we would not be experiencing consistent behavior like that.
Right.
It wouldn't happen. So I can only conclude that these things exist because of that consistency in behavior.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
It does. Actually, I was just talking to a dude. I ran into him at a coffee shop, and I got Bigfoot's on my hat, and he was like, "I saw one," and I was like, "Oh
Yeah.
yeah, where at?" And he was like, "Oh, it was about like 30 years ago." He was like, "I used to live out in Oregon." He's like,
Mm-hmm.
I was just driving my motorcycle down the road, and
Mm-hmm.
it was pacing right next to me, just sprinting
Mm-hmm.
side by side me on the bike, and then veered
Yep.
off into the woods." He's like, "I just looked at it, didn't know what it like to expect or do."
Right.
He's
Right.
like, I just kept on driving, and he was like, "That was a Bigfoot,
Yep.
nice." And he was like, "That's all there is to the story." He's like, "Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just," but we hear stories, them flanking people, chasing
Sure.
vehicles, and then
Absolutely.
just keeping up with fast paced vehicles, and then just
Right.
dipping off instantly into the woods and stuff like that.
Right. I think there's a lot of other elements that I've left out, and not to get too wordy. The smooth, the flow of the gait, right?
Yeah.
They don't run like us. They don't walk like us. It's a very smooth gait. It's a very smooth type of sprint, right? So again, looking at those two elements of the sighting, of any sighting, when the person is experiencing the creature, run alongside them, or they saw it run, they will tell you it was very smooth. It wasn't like a person running where we're bobbing our head and it looks a little rough. These things have a very smooth gait. They have a very smooth type of a sprint, if you will. And
Right.
not only that, if you happen to find a trackway, if you're lucky enough, and if we're talking about Sasquatch, we will see a very linear type of step, type of trackway, right? So we typically you'll see us here and here and here and here, bipedal. These guys here linear, very right. So
Yeah.
again, that's another thing as well. But what I always point people towards is, again, the consistency and behavior that is displayed to the person experiencing that has seen that creature. It's uncanny how similar, how almost the same it is, and it goes past the United States, Australia. You know, I think in some instances you've heard him in Russia, the Almaty,
Yep.
kind of the same behavior.
Our
You
boys
know,
in Vietnam with the rock
the
apes.
rock apes. Yep, the rock
Yeah.
apes. Yep,
A,
exactly.
a lot of soldiers that served, like they're like, oh yeah, if you ask them if they're willing to talk about
Right,
what happened, because a lot of them won't, but they'll
right.
be like, oh yeah, no, there was these hairy men whipping rocks and stuff at us
Yep,
up in the mountains. We thought they were the Viet Cong, but no,
right,
Viet Cong wouldn't be anywhere near where they were. And then
right.
after the war, when things became peaceful-ish, talking to the Vietnamese and stuff like that, they're like, no, those we don't go there. We don't
Right,
mess with those.
right,
I
right.
don't know what their native tongue name for them is, but yeah, they're like, oh no,
Yeah,
we don't go there.
yeah. That's a good question there. I don't know that either. Again, even with the rock throwing, that's another behavior that is displayed that is very consistent, in proving that these things do exist. So yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where you can try and discredit and disprove the subject as much as you want, but the undeniable proof is there, and 23,000 people, even if I just have one person that is truthful and they're all lying, that's enough for me right there. One person.
Yes,
Right.
it's the same here.
Right. So but again, going back to that, I always point people towards the behavior displayed, and you can't discredit that. Why are people seeing and experiencing the same behavior, different cities and different states, different areas?
Correct. And that leads into one of the things that we were going to talk about, if you still have the time to do it,
Mm-hmm.
the
Mm-hmm.
cave systems, the alignments of cave
Right.
systems and Sasquatch.
Right. 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 I think that is something. Again, I think that's another viable piece of the puzzle. I do believe that these things are using cave systems. They can use cave systems. I feel like that is what's going on in my area,
Mm-hmm.
because again, San Antonio sits on underground caverns. There's a lot of them. In fact, I just told you about the Edwards Underground Aquifer, right?
Yes.
That underground cavern stretches from San Antonio to Austin. That is about an hour and 15. That's an hour and 15-minute drive from San Antonio. Think
That's,
about how vast that is of a cave system from San Antonio to Austin. That's how far it stretches.
and that is a smaller one compared to some
Right.
of these ones that we have running across our nation.
Well, if you look at
Too.
Hellier, Kentucky,
Yeah.
Kentucky is vast,
Oh,
crazy. In fact, people have seen these things come out of these cave systems. In
yes.
fact, they've seen other things other than Sasquatch come out of these things that are way more scary, I think, than a Sasquatch.
Oh,
So
yeah, I would agree.
yeah. So I mean, the cave systems, I believe, are being. I feel like that is what is being utilized in my area. I really do.
Mm-hmm.
It makes sense, right? In the summer, it's super hot and humid. Where are you going to go if you reside around this area? Well, if I'm an 8-foot biped covered in hair, I'm going to emit a lot of heat. Number one, I need to go somewhere where it's cool. Underground sounds like a good spot.
Yeah.
Now, and I do believe that, that there is an opening that we don't know about. Maybe they do. Maybe it's well hidden. I do believe that that's what's going on. And I think that's kind of where they reside or where they're traveling. I can't really say that that we have a particular group that resides in our area. I think that it's just more nomadic. And I think it's very consistent in traveling in and out.
Right.
from one area to the other using these cave systems. I think that's what's going on. But here's what I tell people. What I believe is what's going on in my area. I think that all this hunting and this activity is done at night. Number one, I believe that they come out from under these caves at night. These cave systems. They follow Solano Creek, do their hunting, grab their kill, go back underground, and that's where it goes. Or they travel somewhere else using the cave systems or using the creeks or greenways. And in this case, I think that's possibly what's going on. We do have a river that kind of is around San Antonio. It's called the Medina River, and
Mhm.
it actually stems from the Medina Lake area. I actually have a couple of buddies that are researching that lake. In fact, they very consistent, very actively searching. They're doing a lot of night and morning investigations.
Mhm.
They're finding what they feel like they're encountering over there on that side are dogmen.
Yeah.
Um, they're in fact, I just talked to one of the guys yesterday, and he was telling me about it, and like a few days ago, where he felt like they were surrounded by maybe three of these things,
Mhm.
and they had a way out, and they took it, just because, and they were armed. They were armed. It's like like Drewski, like they've got from cryptid warfare, they've got some ammo, they've got some guns,
Yeah.
but I think the sheer size and agility. I don't think even in an AR or a 270 or a 30-30 for that matter would necessarily put one of these things down.
Yeah.
Um,
I I agree, and we have I've gone out with them before, and I'll be back out with them here in the future.
awesome. Did you was Jessica with you guys at one point in time?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Jessica Jones.
Yep. We just
She's
went to
awesome.
we were just in Tennessee not too long ago,
Hmm.
hanging out. This.
Did you have was Harley with you guys at that time?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, actually Hardly rode with me. I picked him up on my way down, so me and
Oh
him,
man.
I got to pick his
Hey,
brain for a couple hours in the car, and then
I
we
love
hung
that
out.
kid.
Yeah, man,
Good.
it's we we're basically, yeah, man. It's cool because me and him are the exact same age. Like,
Cool.
he's a couple days older than me, so it's like, all right, we're the new generation coming into
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
field. So I was like, it's good to make friends, and it's good to do like the stuff that we did, like just all get together
Yeah.
and just hang out and you know,
Connect with each other, man, and
yeah,
support each other. Um, that's important, especially in this field. This field can get very ugly,
yes,
real quick, and for no reason, for absolutely no reason, which is interesting. But that's something I'm not going to give any energy to
no,
at all, because
it ain't worth it.
I don't entertain anybody attacking me. I get it all the time. I don't even give it energy. I'm like, yeah, cool, good for you. Anyway, I'm moving forward, man. Like I don't have time for that junk. So
Right,
um,
if we waste our time with that, how are we going to research?
yeah, exactly. So yeah, man, you're in good company, bro. You're in good company. I like that.
Dude,
I like
that's the best part about podcasting, man. It's just
yeah,
meeting awesome people like them and you. And
yeah.
I I really liked when you talked about, oh, this was a while back. We
Hmm.
got to get the piece of the puzzle, man. That's something I say all the time on the show. I was like, we got to
Yeah,
get our piece of the puzzle, even if the piece is really really weird looking, like some weird crazy piece. Chances
right.
are it's going to fit into somebody else's crazy piece eventually.
It is, and you can't discard it. That's my problem. You cannot discard even if it's the smallest piece. You have to look at it with importance, and obviously we want to use critical thinking. We want to give it due process the way I think you should.
Mhm.
Uh, and if you find that it is something that is, uh, truthful, it is viable, Yes, implement it, and don't let anybody shake you off that. I tell people, I think I did a video not too long ago of just me saying, like, look, if you're new to this, know this, that people are going to come after you. They're going to say outrageous things. They're going to try to knock you off your game. Don't give them that power, man. Don't give them that energy. Don't let them live rent free up here, because that will destroy you. Number one. Number two, you have to know this. Everybody in this game, I don't care who you are, how long you've been doing this, you don't have the answers, and you don't really know. You're human, just like me, just like you. You are subjected to being wrong. You don't have it all together.
Right.
So let's eliminate that right now. That brings us back down to planet Earth and having a little humility. And now we can start working with each other, because, hey, man, I don't know it all. And I'm going to tell you, I don't know it all. But this is what I present to you. Here you go. Oh, okay, this is what I've got. Okay, great. Let's put it together and let's work together, right? This idea of I've been in it long enough and, longer than you and I know more. No, you don't. No, you don't.
Yep.
You
Dude,
really don't.
it's so funny too. And I think this is why, like, I kind of get it and I'm able to do it decently like
Hmm.
that. It's because I'm in leadership at a church,
Good.
and I talk to people all the time, Bigfoot, and I talk to people about Jesus, and
Yep.
all of them. I'll talk to people of all sorts of different denominations, and
Good.
people start to have arguments and stuff, and I'm like, "Do you love Jesus? Do you believe that He went upon the cross, died for our
Yes.
sins, rose 3 days later?"
Right.
Yes, yeah, yeah. All right, we can
Yes.
agree on that. Let's
Right.
get that, and then everything else we can talk about, and we can talk about it civilly, and we
Right.
can we can disagree on what this verse means and what this verse means. But if
Right.
we can agree on the heart of it, that
Right.
is the foundation,
Hmm.
we can. Everything else is up for discussion, and
Right.
we can debate it. And
Right.
it's the same thing with Bigfoot. Hey, man,
Right.
do you think there's a biped walking out there in the woods that is very
Hmm.
elusive and it just has not been discovered yet? Yes.
Right.
All right. I don't care if you think it's a supernatural being. I don't care if you don't. If you think it's a Nephilim, I don't care if you think it's an evolved gorilla.
Right.
Can we agree that there's something out there, and then we can just talk about everything else
Right.
in between? Because
Right.
everybody likes to piss and moan and get pissing matches about
Sure.
stuff,
Sure.
and it's not fun. I don't
Right.
like having conversations like that. Once it
It,
starts getting hostile,
it's who knows more and who can get over on you, right?
you're right.
Listen, that's not what we're called as believers. No,
Exactly.
not at all. Even Christ humbled himself. I came here in humility to be a servant, right? So therefore you serve, right? And that those are things that we have that we forget, and like I said, with the reliability of Sasquatch existing because of the consistency in the behavior,
Hmm.
that I tell people the same thing. You don't believe in Jesus? Read Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John and tell me that Jesus is not reliable. Let's look at that first. He's reliable? Okay, if he's reliable, put your faith into him and follow him. There you go,
Exactly.
right?
Oh, dude, I love it when this happens. This always happens, man. Jesus gets to be brought into it, and this is what I'm here for. I love talking cryptids and stuff like that. But
Yeah,
if
as you should.
if I can tie Jesus into it, it makes my day.
Oh, absolutely, as it should, because I think that what we're chasing, to be quite honest with you, is definitely of some ancient bloodline. I believe that has come from like people throw out the Nephilim thing. Uh, I believe this is a mudblood version
Mhm.
of Nephilim. I think it's probably Raphaim, somewhere in that area. So that's where I'm coming from, because I think that this is more of the. I think it's more. It's also a spiritual battle as well. I do believe that.
Oh,
And,
oh
and
yeah.
I don't think these things are just flesh and blood. I think if these things were just merely flesh and blood, and it was a creature that we hadn't caught up with yet, we would have already had one.
I agree. I I'm really just from talking to people and just that's a big thing. A lot of my stuff is just from talking to people. I'm not a big reader. I used to be.
Yeah.
I don't got the time for it now.
Right.
Like
Right.
with this, like I'm putting it.
Right.
I've moved to having conversations with people now that I have the outlet and ability to. Is that these things are pretty a lot more similar to us than we think because we are spiritual beings in a mortal vessel, and
Right.
I wonder if like I'm
Excuse me.
more on the mudblood kind of thing as you, like
I think it is.
watered down, and just like they're not as spiritual, but I think they have a spirit that resides in them like us, but
Sure.
it's not the same as what God gave us in in
No.
our creation. Now,
Right.
as we know, numerous accounts in the Bible, that's how we got the Nephilim, the enemy, Satan, all the other fallen angels. Like
Right.
they try to mimic God. They can't create, but
Right.
they can copy, kinda, and
Right.
they can't get it right like God.
Right.
But so I think they're just a muddied down
Right.
version because I mean,
Right.
so I it
I'm with you 100% because when you think about it, fallen angels, they found that the women of earth were beautiful,
mhm.
came down. Here's where people have a hard time with this, and even believers, I think. Well, believers came down and copulated with women, and then also taught man how to make weapons, right?
Right.
Taught women how to make makeup,
Yep, jewelry, all that.
right? Right.
Right.
So again, and also I believe copulated with animals. So I think that what we're dealing with is very spiritual, supernatural, and it's flesh and blood as well. I
Right.
believe it does bleed, it does defecate, it does multiply as far as having little ones and things like that. Yeah, absolutely. But I do believe that this is more of, you get into the book of Enoch and the book of Giants and things like that. While it is not, the book of Enoch is not actually the adherent word of God, it is literary history. I think
It's
that we should look at, and really, really study. I think we should.
yeah. I hold it in the same equivalence as I have a copy of the Odyssey behind me and stuff like that.
Mm,
I have a couple other like like really old classics like the Iliad and all that stuff like that.
right,
It's I think it's very, very important to
right,
also read the history. One thing I always say all the time on this show is because I get people different places of faith, not of faith in
right,
Christ, and they're like, "Oh, well, you're reading the Book of Enoch and stuff like this, and all these other things." I'm like, "All right, well, here's the thing: do you have a Bible commentary that you read
mm-hmm,
along with your Bible? Do you have like
mm-hmm,
the I know the big ones, the MacArthur commentary? Somebody bought
mm-hmm,
that for me.
mm-hmm,
Read that with your Bible and stuff like that."
mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, what's wrong with that? Well, aren't you just reading somebody's experiences in their time and
Yep.
what their views on God? If I believe it's in John or Matthew. If we were to write down all the things and all the miracles that Christ has done, we'd be able to cover the whole face of the earth numerous times in books.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
The Bible is the guide on how Christ came to be, and then that's the Old Testament. It's all the prophecies, all that, all God's order, the Old Covenant, all the prophecies showing that Christ is coming. The Messiah will be here one day.
Mm-hmm.
Then the Messiah comes, and then everything after that, all the Gospels, even Revelation and all that, is how to build a relationship with the Lord and the new covenant. He came,
Right.
like you said, he to be the servant.
Right.
He he wants us to humble ourselves, be servants.
Right.
And this is how you grow your relationship with him. He is the word is him, and if we read that, that's how we build a relationship with them. You can't.
Absolutely.
And so, all right, there's the Bible. But guess what? Other stuff happened in those times. You know, as when Jesus was in his ministry, it wasn't the whole world was just blank. He went to the lady in the well. He went,
Mm,
you know, he went and turned a couple fish and bread and fed
mm,
500 people.
yeah.
There was other stuff. There was other lives being lived during
Yep.
that time. The Bible is just what we need to know to do
Right.
what God wants us to do. It never does it not say, hey, you know, where in the Bible does it tell us not to tell our stories to each other? Last time I
Right.
checked, testimony. God gives us a testimony for a reason to talk about
Yeah.
what He's
Absolutely.
done for us. There's other things, other lives that have been lived. There's countless other lives that have been lived all
Absolutely.
through history. So just because we
Yep.
read them and take them, does that mean we have to believe it as 100% truth? No, but maybe we can learn something from it.
Right.
Maybe it's maybe some of that stuff's all false doctrine. Who knows? I'm not here to say.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not God. But,
Mm-hmm.
you know, maybe we can take maybe there's some truth in there.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just one of those things. Like you got to realize what it is, but
Mm-hmm.
it's interesting to read. It's good to know.
Absolutely. I think that if you look at the tradition, 2,000 plus years, you have to sit there and go, why are people following this tradition over 2,000 years if there's no truth to it,
Exactly.
right? If there's no truth to it, it would have fallen apart a long time ago, right? But archaeology also supports the existence of Jesus, the existence of the apostles, right? 500 witnesses that saw the resurrected Christ.
Right.
Okay, right?
Right.
We've got what 66 books written by 40 authors. 39 of them are Jewish. One was not. Okay, and we're talking about different continents these were written in. Okay, so again, they all coincide. So that tells me that this book is reliable, and that it is the truth. It is the inherent word of God. You
Right.
know, right? And so again, you have to look at and what people like to do is to take things out of context. People like to cherry pick verses and use it for their narrative or use it against you, disprove that Jesus was not real, that believing in God is a farce, whatever, and that is not so. And people will use Christianity as a vehicle to bombard you with. Well, Christianity was used for the Crusades, the Inquisition. It was used for slavery, or the name of slavery. Well, that's okay. So man can take anything and make it a vehicle and justify it for any type of action.
Right.
Is that what Jesus did? He did not. I
No.
follow Jesus Christ. Christianity can't save you. Jesus Christ can.
Exactly.
Big difference. Big difference.
Big difference. Well, I mean, if we're gonna go down that road too, I mean, look what the Pharisees and all them, all the elders and stuff of the synagogues and stuff were throwing scripture at Jesus, trying to tell him he's wrong. He's like,
Absolutely.
dude,
Absolutely.
he's like,
Listen to this.
I'm the Messiah. I am who you have been waiting for.
Even in the face of Lazarus, right? He was resurrected from the dead. Jesus brought him back, right? Even in the face of that, they didn't believe, right? So when people go, well, I need proof that this is real. Man, I tell you the same thing about Lazarus.
Yeah. Or
The Christ was there. He brought Lazarus back from the dead, and they still didn't believe. We are no different in this day and age from that. We are no different, you
and,
know?
and he knows that.
Yeah,
God knows that. And
yeah.
he works with us on it, you know. Well,
Well,
it's like the dude that who was it? But he
hmm
Christ was like, believe in me, and he was like, help me. I believe, but help me with my unbelief. I'm trying to one of the centurions, I believe it was.
Oh, so no, the centurion, the account of the centurion was, he understood order and authority.
Hmm.
He said, no, because he came in and said, my servant. He's deathly ill. I need you to heal him. And Jesus said, I will go. Let me go to your home and let me heal him. He said, no. He said, all you have to do is say it, and it will be done, because I understand how authority works, because I am in a place of authority. And
Oh,
I say, hey, you go get this done, and it will be done. And all I have to do is say it. It will be done. He understood the authority that Jesus had. He knew that those words would heal his servant quick.
right.
And it happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Dude.
And let me tell you this, that was one of the only times that you see in the Bible that Jesus was like taken back, like, whoa. What you never hear about anybody else going impressing Jesus like that. So you got to know this man, I believe he was a believer already. He knew,
Mhm.
because he understood what authority was, because he was in a place of authority and he recognized authority in Jesus.
It also that childlike faith that Jesus always talks about us having. It's
Right.
it's like, yeah, no, I know you'll do it. I know it'll
Mm-hmm.
be done. I know you can. And that's something that's just I need to work on every day too. Just
Well,
like,
I'm going to tell you this. Remember this. Repentance is a lifestyle.
yes.
Remember that. Every day. Every day. Repentance is a lifestyle. It is not something that I tell God I'm sorry for. That's different.
Hmm.
Repentance literally means to turn away,
Exactly.
right?
Right.
And guess what? We're going to do it again. I'm a wicked person by nature. So are you.
Yep.
So is everybody else on this earth.
Yes, we are.
But the difference is this. We understand that a risen Christ is here. He's alive. He died for us. His blood covered all of our sins. He cleaned the slate for us. The debt is paid, right? We
Right.
could come to him, and he said, hey, look, come to me, all who are weary and heavy laden, and I will give you rest, because my yoke is light. Okay?
Right.
We could come to him with our problems, with our sin, and his blood covers it all. Now, does it mean that you should start, like in Romans, it says, grace abounds sin. So does that mean we should start sinning? Keep on sinning? No, of course not.
No.
We need to have a change of lifestyle, a change of heart, and turn away. Doesn't mean we're not going to sin, but we're going to keep on plugging away at it
every
over and
day,
over.
every day, trying to get one step closer to being Christ-like.
Absolutely. And you are salt and light of the earth. What good is salt if it loses its flavor? None. What sets you apart? Just because you call yourself a Christian and you go and live a lifestyle that doesn't say that's not an example of at all what makes you different, right? So we are salt and light of the earth. You should set yourself apart. What makes you different is because I'm covered in the blood. The debt has been paid. I put my faith in Jesus. I repent. I believe. I follow, and I obey. Period. That's it. That's all. That's all I got to say.
Yeah. Well said, brother. Well said. Man, I was not expecting this to go like this at all this evening. One bit. But
Yeah,
man, brother, I am really, really glad it did go this direction.
absolutely. Me too.
I told, yeah, I'm gonna tell you what I tell everybody all the time when this happens. I told God when I started this podcast, because I had a lot of people that told me not to do it. I told
Yeah.
God, I was like, God, do whatever you want with this podcast. This podcast
Mm.
is yours, and whenever you want to come through on it, it is your channel to do whatever you want on it. And it's funny how this just happens. This is not
That's powerful, man. That's powerful.
this is not a first time that this has happened, and I know it's
Powerful.
not going to be the last. And I just
And it shouldn't. It
I
shouldn't
love
be.
it. I
Good.
don't. I love talking about Bigfoot. I love talking cryptids,
Yeah, of
conspiracies, and all that.
course.
But I love talking about Jesus, and that's just like my
Right.
evangelistic nature. And
Well, God has used this podcast to convey the gospel. And, I tell people this, like I just said a while back, even if one person is telling the truth, that's all we need. If one person hears any of your podcasts and comes to Christ as a result of that, you've done what you're supposed to do.
Right.
It's not our job. It's not our job to save people.
Nope.
None. That is not my job. That's not your job. That's God. But it is a part of our job to listen to the Holy Spirit, to convey the gospel, right? Matthew 25:19, till all have heard, right? Go out and preach the gospel to all the nations. That's what we should be doing. Hey, if you want to live a life separated from God, go right ahead and see where that takes you.
Yeah.
But if you want to live a life aligned with Jesus in paradise and eternity, come on, let's go. We can do that.
As I tell people all the time, man, it's the easiest thing you can do and the hardest thing you can ever do.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
it's easy to say yes, I want to do this. It's the
Yeah.
hardest thing once you do, because it's not rainbows and
Yeah.
butterflies always. The end goal is going to be perfect, and that's
Yeah.
what it's all going to be worth. But
Yes, sir.
getting to that day, man, every day's a battle. And I'll
Yes,
tell you
sir.
what, when you start speaking out like you and I are right now, man, the enemy does not like that. And
No, that's
but
okay.
that's
That's a
fine.
good. He's already defeated. Who
Exactly.
cares?
Who cares? Brother, this has been an absolute blast, and I'm just telling you right now, you're coming back on the show in the future.
Okay.
This has been so much fun, man.
Yeah,
Uh,
I agree.
before we get out of here, man,
Mhm.
tell everybody where they can find you again. And
Yeah. If you want to follow me on Instagram, I'm on Instagram, Bear County Bigfoot. It's Bexar County Bigfoot. Um, the same Bear County Bigfoot on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok. I do have a Facebook group, and it's private. I keep it private for a reason. You have to go and answer a couple of questions, and then I kind of screen people. Not crazy, but I'm after quality and not quantity.
mhm.
My group is very small. It's like over 500 or 600 people, um, and I do that for a reason, because I just don't want anybody with ill intentions to come in and just start wreaking havoc on my group. So you can be a part of the group. Just answer the questions. I'll look at your profile, and then I'll approve you at my discretion, type of thing. But if you really want to keep in touch with me, you can message me on Facebook, Bear County Bigfoot again, TikTok, YouTube. I have the same thing as well. And also, I like to give a special shout out to my friends at the Soul Squatch. This is the hat that I'm wearing right now. They are gracious enough to send me their new products every time they have something coming out. This is a brand new hat that they just came out with, and I encourage everybody to follow the Soul Squatch. Great people. They are people of faith as well, and so they are definitely people to support. And just want to give them a shout out, and all the love to them as well. So yeah, but you guys can follow me TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube.
All right, guys, you heard it, and go check out Soul Squatch. I'm gonna go
Yeah,
check it. I'm gonna check it out after this.
check them out, man.
And all the links and everything will be down in the bio below when this episode comes out. So, guys, I told you today I had a great episode for you, and I wasn't lying. I had an absolute blast. And guys, just if you or anybody you know would like to be a guest on the show, reach out. You can email me at midwestmythospodcast@outlook.com, or you can go check out my link tree, which is below, and I have a report and counter form on there. Or you can message me on Instagram at Midwest Mythos. I love talking to you guys. I usually get back to people really quick. Um, and with that being said, guys, I'll catch y'all next week, and God bless. Bye.